Okay, everybody, how's it going? It's Mark from TIETS Informationals here. Today, we're going to talk about Viticulture, the strategic game of winemaking, which is by Stonemaier Games, which excel in high quality. There's been a lot of reviews, a lot of videos done on this game, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a different take on it and why I like it. I feel I'm a little bit qualified. I did work in the wine industry for several years, so I know a lot about winemaking. But does that make me good at this game? Not really. But anyway, so but the theme is what's really stands out here, and we'll get more into that. A little bit more history on the game. It was originally a Kickstarter, a very successful Kickstarter. Came out with a first edition, had a really cool sleeve, came with great components. Since then, they've come out with a second edition, which they did in a Kickstarter, which included the expansion Tuscany, which came with a lot more expansions in addition to the few that came with the original Kickstarter. It also comes all the way down to Mafia cards. So you can pretty much get the whole winemaking experience in Viticulture. But without further ado, let's go into, without further ado, you like that? Without further ado, let's go into the components, take a look what the game looks like, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a lot more about it. Okay, so here is Viticulture. It's not set up primarily for a game here, it's just I'm trying to show you the components and the pieces. It's obviously been well storied, and there's walkthroughs and all kinds of videos you can watch. So this one's a little bit different. We're just going to kind of show you the pieces and why this game is so extraordinary. You can see I put some of my wines out here just in celebration, because when you're done playing this game, you certainly feel like you've made wine, and it's sort of a labor of love. And so just going with the theme, because as I said before, and I'll say it again, this game is very thematic and makes it just that much more fun to play. Okay, so when you talk about detail, you can first start just with the player boards, and you're probably not going to be able to see it here, but on the player boards, they actually, when you first glance and look at them, they look all the same, but they actually have the colors. Like this is white and this is purple, and they actually have the colors on the little windmills and the little buildings that you can build. So it's just all the way down to that detail where it easily could have been where every board was the same. They went ahead and put the different colors on. So just another piece of detail there. Of course, now you have this cool little first player marker, this awesome little vine of grapes, a bundle of grapes, sorry. You have your little extra worker who's gray here. You can see this is one of your little workers. I'm just going to go through the pieces real quick. These are the corks, which are the victory point track. Here is your rooster, and your rooster, which is what time you wake up, and that's what you deal with in spring. Of course, you have the summer. We'll go through all the board. Let's go through the rest of the pieces here. And then we look over here, we got the trellis. You got the really cool trellis here, like a little grapevine on there. You need this to have certain type of grapes planted in your fields of your vineyard. You have this cool windmill, very cool. And your cottage, get the cool cottage here. You've got your yoke for, those times where you need to displace one of your vines, or you need to harvest a field. This is just a little tourist tent, so you can bring people, give them into your tasting room. And here is an irrigation for your water tower that you have for certain grapes that you're going to need. Here is your grande worker, very important, especially in a 4 or 6 player game. Here is your standard worker. And then you've got your cellars. You get your medium and your large cellar that you're going to have to build in order to age your wines and have really nice rosés and some sparkling. You know how it goes. And then these are the little these represent your grapes. So when you harvest a field, you put the grapes in here, and this is how you age your grapes. And then this is also your wine bottles. Now these are a little bit smaller in the second edition, so they fit on the space a little bit more and easier to move around. So that is a brief description of all the components. Okay, I just put out a couple of the cards here, so I want you to take a look at. These are the vine cards, so you can see like this is a Pinot and this is a Chardonnay. You can see you need your trellis and your irrigation tower to plant those. And we all like red Pinot. There's some red Pinot right there, see? It's not just Pinot Grigio. And then here we have some visitors. Who do we got here? I just grabbed a couple randomly. We got the tour guide, game for Alira. We got the little horticulturalists here. There's a couple. These are visitors that are going to come in the summer. Here are your wine orders. So, you know, here we got to deliver some really nice white wine. Could be that Rombauer over there. And here we got a couple reds, a couple nice reds. Might be a nice little Sagazio Zin here. This could be a Mont Pinot. See, I've got all my wines I'm delivering. Let's see, what do we have here? This is a white and a red. Well, I don't really have a little Merlot around or anything, so I can't really fill that order. And no rosés on the board. So anyway, these are just order cards. That's how you're going to fill and make victory points. And then these are the winter cards. Here's an example. Here's the benefactor and, oh, the harvester. God, I love the harvester. Anyway, so that is just kind of how the cards look. And now I'm going to take this off the stand and we're going to go a little bit more detail into what the board looks like. Okay, so here's the board. One thing that's cool about the board is you can see it's going to have writing on here telling you what all the spaces do. But as you get experience in the game, you can flip it over and have just the board without any of the writing. And that's the same over the fields. And I can actually grab one here so you can see. See, this is one on the other side where there's no writing. So just that much more nice to look at. So that's kind of how they do that there, which is just more detail stuff. You got the little what to do, little quick reference guide here. These represent, if you're playing a 2-player game, you can only use the first spot. Then the 3 to 4 player game, second spot, which has the little bonus pieces. And then this would be for a 5 or 6 player game. So you can see just all the cool little buildings, visitors. You got selling grapes. You can plant grapes. Building structures here. This is where you're going to deliver the orders. Harvesting your field. Winter. Anyway, really, really cool. Amazing detail. You can take a look at it. These are cool how these work. Yep. Gotta age my wine. Gotta age my whites. Gotta combine these two and make a rosé. This person can't because they don't have a medium cellar, but certainly can make one up here. Anyway, this is how it goes. You go through the whole process of running a winery and making wines, and then maybe you can come up with some of these. And that, my friends, this is Scotch. That's a whole entirely different game. But anyway, there is Viticulture. We'll talk more about it. Beautiful game. Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, we're back. And for those of you that are very ingenious out there, you probably figured that I recorded that other stuff either before or after because nothing is moved and everything is the same here. Well, you're right. That's the magic of video editing as unprofessionally it is done here at TIETS Informationals. But the number one thing about this, so this Viticulture is a worker placement game, and it takes you through the process of running a vineyard, a winery. I mean, you're doing tours, you're waking up, you're training workers, you are having visitors come to your winery, you're giving tours, you're planting grapes, you're harvesting the grapes, you're building buildings, you're expanding, you're aging wines. So you're going all the way through the process where you're having visitors come in, you're placing orders, you're delivering those orders, and ultimately enough to win the game. Okay, also one thing I know I missed in my little component thing was the little wine bottles, which are your residual money as your winery becomes more profitable and you sell more, then you have residuals coming in. Now, I guess that's pretty much probably from getting wine members or whatever, and they're just sending you money and buying next year's wines. So this game is really interesting in the fact that you feel like you're kind of building something, you're kind of growing, and everybody else is growing, and then you start to feel really competitive with the other wineries, which are the other players. And it does become a pretty intense race. Now, you can't go past 25 points, so a lot of people are going to get to that, and then you're going to get to the end game with whoever has the most money, whoever has the most, the greatest, best wines, most aged wines, and so forth. There's a couple tiebreakers, but you really start to feel that intensity going on. There is one thing that comes out in this game, sort of like it did in Agricola, if you're familiar with that, where you have to kind of get family members. Here you got to get workers. So in the beginning, it does feel like a little bit of race to get workers, but the more you play it, you realize that there are some other strategies to that. But instinctually, people are just going to try to get the workers so we can get more actions and get things going. But you really do have to. There are certain ways to win without having a lot of wine production. You know, I've tried to do the whole giving tours, and there's an entertainer visitor, which is really cool. And so, I kind of had a smaller, more boutique winery. I ended up getting up here pretty fast, but I got blown away at the end by the bigger wineries that had better producing and aged wines. But alas. I hope you're getting the idea that there is a lot of theme in this game. It really feels like you're running a winery. I mean, it can almost be exhausting when you're done with the game. You're like, wow. But you are building something, and it's really, really fun to do. I will say that when you talk about this game can be up to 6 players. The one thing I will say is the box time says 45 to 90 minutes. Maybe. I think it's going to take you a lot longer to play. The first couple games we played were in the 3-hour range, and that was with 4 players. I'm not quite sure I can imagine. I have not played this game with 6 players. I don't think I would. I think it would just be too much and too long, unless everybody's a real expert on that. It is fun with 2 players. I personally like 3 players the best. I think the game moves a little quicker. There's a few more options because you use both spaces, so you don't get locked out as much, so you can actually do more of the things you want to do. Now, is it as strategic? Maybe not, as it is with 4 players, but I just like the pace of it. I like the feel of it. It's easier that way to play a game, and then you'd be convincing enough to play it again to get some of the expansions out there and so forth. So I rate this game really, really high. I think it's a great worker placement game. There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of different elements with it, especially with Tuscany, which we're not talking about today, but adds a lot more to the game. But if you are looking for a game with 1, amazing components, 2, that has a lot of depth, strategy, and can be a heavier game, and if you love wine and your gaming group or people you're with love wine, you just can't beat this game. There are a couple other cool winemaking games out there. I think Grand Cru was a pretty cool game in the past, but doesn't quite come up to snuff with the quality and the detail that is in Viticulture. I mean, you saw the pieces, you've seen the board, you see the artwork. I mean, just feeling it is nice. Anyway, highly, highly recommend it. It goes beyond kind of just a walkthrough. So if you don't have Viticulture, if you don't have Tuscany, if you're not familiar with Stonemaier games, it's time to get familiar with them because they're making great quality games, and I appreciate that as a gamer. So take it easy, and hope this was helpful to you.